Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed. Okay, let's dive in. We're taking a close look today at recent developments involving Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, focusing on both the diplomacy or attempts at it and the hard military facts on the ground.
Exactly. So we'll cover potential talks, these prisoner and body exchanges we've been seeing, and updates on troop movements and the overall military picture.
It's crucial because the battlefield and any talks are so interconnected right now. What happens in one directly impacts the other.
Definitely. So let's begin with some of that diplomatic and humanitarian news. We saw Russian President Putin had a phone call with U.S. President Trump.
Yes, that happened. And apparently Russian President Putin specifically updated U.S. President Trump on the prisoner exchanges with Ukraine.
Making a point of it.
Seems like it. It signals maybe the political weight they're putting on these specific actions, even with the fighting being so intense.
And what about actual negotiations? There was talk about Russia being ready to continue talks after June 22nd.
Right. That date seems to stem from a meeting they had in Istanbul. That was June 2nd.
The most recent one between the delegations?
That's right. The last formal meeting.
It's kind of wild to think the first meeting like that in, 3 years? Only happened back on May 16th, also Istanbul?
Yeah, May 16th. That broke a long pause.
Yeah.
And out of that first round, they agreed to sort of lay out their visions for a ceasefire.
Okay.
And importantly, they agreed in principle to aim for that big prisoner swap, the 1,000 for 1,000 idea.
A huge number, a significant humanitarian goal, if it happens. Did the second meeting, June 2nd, build on that?
It did, yeah. That meeting firmed up agreements for another prisoner exchange and also, crucially, set up a way to exchange the bodies of soldiers killed in action.
Grim stuff, but necessary on a humanitarian level.
Absolutely necessary.
And are these exchanges actually, happening now?
Yes. Seems like those agreements are turning into real actions. Prison swaps are underway. They're focusing reportedly on the seriously wounded and also personnel under 25.
Okay.
And on the body exchanges, Ukraine has taken in 2 batches of bodies recently.
And Russian personnel returning too.
That's right. Just today, June 14th, another group of Russian servicemen came back from Ukrainian-controlled areas.
So it's ongoing.
Yeah, it's not just a one-off. This is the 4th round just since early June. There were others on June 9th, 10th, and 12th.
Do we know the actual numbers involved in these prisoner swaps? The recent ones?
No, neither Moscow nor Kyiv are releasing the exact figures for those exchanges. We know they're happening, but the scale of each specific swap isn't public.
Okay, but for the body exchanges, we do have some numbers.
We do, yes. That Istanbul agreement specifically covered returning the bodies of deceased soldiers. The first big one was June 11th.
Right.
In that one, Ukraine received quite a large number, 1,212 bodies. Russia received 27.
Wow, 1212.
And then on June 13th, and again today, the 14th, Ukraine received another 1,200 bodies each day.
So wait, that's over 3,600 bodies returned to Ukraine just this week.
Numbers add up quickly, yeah. It really highlights the scale of the losses.
Truly staggering.
It is. And beyond those specific exchanges, something called indefinite sanitary exchanges have apparently started. That's specifically for the ongoing swap of wounded personnel, another humanitarian channel trying to operate.
It's such a strange contrast, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
These humanitarian steps happening alongside the fighting. The U.S. State Department did comment on this.
They did, yeah. They welcomed the progress on these specific talks, these exchanges, acknowledging them as, positive steps, even if they don't signal a wider peace deal yet.
Right. So delicate threads on one side, brutal reality on the other. Let's shift to that military reality now, because like you said, the battlefield is really driving things.
Yeah, this is where you see the pressure points. We're seeing reports that Russian troops are trying to expand what they call a buffer zone, specifically in Donetsk-Petrovsk Oblast.
Where exactly is that happening?
The focus seems to be around Orikov village. It's strategic, right on the administrative line between the occupied parts of Donetsk Oblast, the DPR area, and Ukrainian-controlled Dnipropetrovsk.
And this push is happening just as the Kremlin announced a, quote, new phase of denazification.
Seems timed that way. Russian President Putin's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, basically said these actions, including near Orikov, are part of creating that buffer zone.
Okay.
Now, the actual ground gained in Dnipropetrovsk itself is supposedly small, like dozens of meters maybe, but it's part of a bigger picture.
Because elsewhere, especially up in the northeast, Sumy Oblast, reports say Russian troops took a dozen villages there. That sounds more significant.
It does, yeah. The situation in Sumy Oblast for Ukrainian forces is being described as, well, grim.
What's made Sumy so vulnerable?
Well, a key thing seems to be that after Ukrainian forces pulled back from Kursk Oblast last year, it kind of left the Ukrainian side of that border exposed.
Exposed how?
Critically, it seems like proper fortifications weren't built along that Sumy border for about 6 months after that Kursk operation and gave them some breathing room.
6 months?
Yeah.
With no new defenses on an active border.
That's the report. Serious delay. Things like building proper defenses, even just putting up nets along roads against FPV drones that apparently only started very recently.
Leaving a big opening.
Which Russian forces seem to have exploited. Over the past month, they've apparently captured almost 200 square kilometers of that border area northeast of Sumy City.
200 square kilometers?
Oh.
How does that compare?
Well, it's roughly a fifth of the area Ukraine had secured over near Kursk last summer, so it's a noticeable reversal of gains in that region.
A new front, effectively. And Ukraine's command only acknowledged this Sumy front opening up this week.
That seems to be the timing, yes. And getting clear information is hard. Journalists are apparently banned from reporting in the Sumy area right now.
Makes it tough to know for sure, like whether Sumy City itself, with its, 250,000 people, is under threat.
Well, capturing the city itself might not be the immediate goal. It seems more likely strategically that the aim is to stretch Ukrainian defenses by forcing them to pull troops and resources away from other areas, primarily away from the main Russian push.
It's still Donetsk Oblast, the DPR area.
That's widely seen as the main target for Russian President Putin's summer offensive, yes. So opening the Sumy front forces Ukraine into tough choices about where to defend. It makes them prioritize.
And attempting another raid into Russia, like last year's near Kursk, to disrupt things, that's probably not viable this time.
The assessment seems to be no, not likely to succeed this time. The balance appears to have shifted.
In what way?
Russia reportedly has more manpower now, more rockets, drones, ammo, compared to Ukraine. That makes a deep disruptive raid much harder, much riskier.
And what's seen as Ukraine's biggest weak spot right now?
The single biggest vulnerability highlighted is a chronic shortage of personnel, especially infantry.
How bad is the shortage?
The numbers mentioned are stark. Ukraine is reportedly mobilizing maybe 15,000 fewer soldiers each month than Russia is. That's a significant gap.
15,000 a month. What does that look like on the front line?
The impact is apparently severe. Shortage of infantry means reports of some trench lines being basically empty, defended almost entirely by drones.
Wow. Which brings us to drone warfare. Ukraine was seen as a leader there initially.
Definitely were innovators, yeah. But the drone war has evolved, and now Russia seems to have gained an edge in some areas.
What kind of edge?
A key factor seems to be their heavy use of fiber-optic drones.
Fiber-optic.
Yeah.
How are they different?
The big difference is they're physically connected to the operator by a cable, a wire.
Ah, so they can't be jammed easily.
Exactly. Immune or highly resistant to the electronic warfare that's everywhere. The signal isn't wireless, so you can't just disrupt it. And Russia is apparently using these very effectively to hunt down and hit Ukrainian supply lines.
So Ukraine is playing catch-up on that tech.
It appears so. They're working on it, but Ukrainian brigades have apparently only just started getting their first batches of these fiber-optic drones.
While
Russia's reportedly been using them in large numbers since last autumn. That's a big head start, creates a real operational gap.
And if supply lines are being hit by these hard-to-stop drones, getting ammo and weapons to the front must be incredibly dangerous.
That's what the analysis suggests, yes. Delivering supplies to the forward positions is considered maybe the most perilous job for Ukrainian forces right now, largely because of how effective Russia's drone operations, including these fiber-optic ones, have become against logistics.
Looking ahead then, for the summer, where are the main fights expected?
Based on troop movements and stated goals, the focus seems to be in Donetsk Oblast, specifically around Kostiantynivka, Duskivka, and Pokrovsk, used to be called Krasnoarmeysk.
Because the goal remains capturing all of Donetsk Oblast for Russia.
That is still the stated objective driving their main offensive push, yes. Russian President Putin has maintained that goal.
So if we pull all this together, the limited diplomatic progress on specific issues like exchanges, new fronts opening like Sumy, the personnel problems, the drone warfare shift, what's the big takeaway for Ukraine's position right now?
I think the core challenge is needing to defend on multiple fronts at the same time. Doing that while facing serious personnel shortages and trying to adapt very quickly to these tech shifts, like Russia's advantage with certain drones. It's an incredibly difficult balancing act.
A multi-front defense under immense pressure.
Precisely. A huge strain on resources, on manpower.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.